Admiral Marcus Stone walked across the bridge of the UES Liberty. The ship moved through space faster than anything humans had ever built before. Around him, officers worked at their stations with quiet focus. The bridge hummed with energy from the new quantum drives that powered their journey. "Admiral, we're getting close to the edge of their space," said Captain Linda Ross. She stood near the main screen, watching the stars ahead. Her uniform was clean and pressed, but her face showed the stress of commanding humanity's first trip to meet aliens. Marcus nodded and looked at the data on his screen. The Zalfarian Empire controlled hundreds of worlds. Earth scouts had been watching them for months, learning their language and customs. Now it was time to make contact. Dr. Rebecca Hayes worked at her station near the back of the bridge. She was one of Earth's best engineers, and she had helped build the quantum drives that made this trip possible. The drives let the Liberty move through space in ways that seemed impossible. Instead of going around obstacles, they went through different layers of reality. "The quantum field is stable," Dr. Hayes reported. "We can keep this speed for as long as needed." Next to her, Dr. Kevin Blake watched readings that showed how the ship moved between dimensions. The math was so complex that only a few humans really understood it. But it worked, and that was what mattered. Far away on the planet Vorthik Prime, Fleet Commander Kithvel sat in his command center. The room was large and dark, with screens showing the positions of thousands of ships across the Empire. He had been watching the outer borders when the strange readings started. "Sir, we're getting some odd signals from Sector 7, said his aide, a young officer named Seth Cole. The alien's forearms moved quickly as he worked at his controls. His skin was blue-green, and his large eyes reflected the light from his screens. Kithvel moved to look at the data. The readings made no sense. Something was moving toward their space, but it wasn't using any kind of drive system he knew about. The energy patterns were completely wrong. "Check the sensors again," he ordered. "This data must be broken." Zeph Cole ran the tests 3 more times. Each time, the results were the same. Something was coming, and it was moving in a way that should not be possible. "Sir, I've checked everything twice. The readings are correct. Whatever is out there is not using normal space travel." Kithvel felt a chill run through his body. In his long career, he had seen ships from many different species. Some were fast, some were strong, but all of them followed the same basic rules of physics. This was different. He sent a message to his superiors on the capital world. "Emperor." Vexthel needed to know about this right away. On Vorthek Prime, the Emperor sat on his throne in the Great Hall. The room was huge, with walls that reached up into darkness. Vexthol had ruled the Empire for over 200 years. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that showed his age and wisdom. Defense Minister Kithral approached the throne. He was younger than the Emperor, but still old by human standards. His military uniform was covered with medals from countless victories. "Your Majesty, we have received some unusual reports from our outer territories," he said, bowing low. The Emperor listened as Kithral explained the strange readings. When he finished, Vexthel was quiet for a long moment. "How many ships?" the Emperor asked. "The readings suggest only 1, Your Majesty. But the energy signature is unlike anything we have seen before." The Emperor laughed, a sound that echoed through the Great Hall. "1 ship? Minister, our empire has faced thousands of species over the centuries. None have ever possessed technology we could not understand or defeat. Send word that our defense grid will handle whatever this is." But deep inside, the Emperor felt something he had not experienced in decades. Doubt. Back on the Liberty, Captain Ross checked their position. They were now at the very edge of Zalfarian space. Ahead of them lay the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Behind them was Earth, alone, and hoping for peaceful contact. "Dr. Hayes, are we ready for the final jump?" she asked. Dr. Hayes looked at her instruments one more time. Everything was perfect. The quantum drives were running smoothly, and the ship systems were all working correctly. "Ready when you are, Captain." Captain Ross took a deep breath. This moment would change everything for humanity. They were about to announce their presence to a civilization that had ruled space for thousands of years. "Begin the quantum displacement," she ordered. The Liberty began to fade from normal space. To anyone watching, it would seem like the ship was dissolving into nothing. But Dr. Blake knew they were actually moving between different layers of reality, sliding through dimensions that most people couldn't even imagine. On Vorthic Prime, every sensor array in the system suddenly went crazy. Alarms began ringing in command centers across the planet. The unknown ship had just appeared directly above their capital world, having somehow passed through every defense system they had. Fleet Commander Kithvel stared at his screens in shock. The ship had bypassed sensors, shields, and weapons that had protected the Empire for centuries. It was simply there, hanging in space above the most important world in the galaxy. "That's not possible," he whispered. But the ship was there, real and solid, proving that impossible was just another word that had lost its meaning. The alarms on Vorthic Prime had been ringing for 10 minutes. In the main defense center, Admiral Zeph stood frozen as he watched his screens. The human ship moved in ways that made no sense. One moment it was solid and clear on the sensors. The next moment it seemed to fade like smoke. "Fire a warning shot," he ordered his weapons officer. The massive defense cannons that protected the capital world turned toward the Liberty. Energy beams that could destroy mountains shot through space, but they passed right through empty air. The human ship was no longer where the sensors said it should be. "Target lock lost, sir," reported the weapons officer. His voice shook with confusion. "The ship appears to be in 7 different locations at the same time." Admiral Zeph had commanded fleets for 50 years. He had won battles against rebels and pirates across the galaxy. But he had never seen anything like this. On the Liberty, Captain Ross watched the alien weapons fire uselessly into space. The ship's quantum shields made them exist in several different realities at once. Physical attacks simply passed through the empty spaces between their dimensional positions. "Captain, we're receiving transmission attempts from the planet's surface," said Communications Officer Lisa Warren. She was young but skilled, and had learned the Zelfarian language during the long trip from Earth. "Put me through to their command center," Captain Ross ordered. Commander Jake Morrison stood ready near the bridge exit. He was in charge of the away team that would make first contact. Behind him waited Dr. Amy Carter, who knew more about alien languages than almost anyone on Earth. Dr. Ryan Hughes carried cultural data about the Zelfarians that Earth spies had gathered over many months. "Commander Morrison, prepare your team," Captain Ross said. "But wait for my signal. I want to see how they react first." Down on Vorthic Prime, Science Director Nithvel ran through the halls of the research center. Her long robes flapped behind her as she rushed to the main laboratory. Inside, her best scientists worked frantically at their computers. "What do we know about their ship?" she demanded. Theoretical physicist Kef Tao looked up from his calculations. His normally calm face was filled with worry. "Director, the readings make no scientific sense. The ship's hull seems to absorb energy instead of reflecting it. And the way it moves suggests they can control quantum tunneling on a massive scale." NYT, Vel felt her heart skip a beat. Quantum tunneling was something they understood in theory, but no one had ever managed to control it for practical use. The mathematics alone required understanding of 17 different dimensions. "That's impossible," she said. "No species has that level of technological development." But the evidence was right there on their screens. On the Liberty, Dr. Kevin Blake ran passive scans of the Zelfarian fleet. What he found surprised him. Their technology was actually quite simple compared to what humans had developed. The aliens used brute force methods that required enormous amounts of energy and materials. "Captain, I'm reading their ship designs," he reported. "They're using fusion drives that are at least 300 years behind our current technology. Their weapons are powerful but inefficient, and their computers are running on systems we stopped using decades ago." Captain Ross found this information interesting. The Zelfarian Empire ruled hundreds of worlds, but they had never needed to innovate. With unlimited resources and no real challenges, they had simply built bigger versions of old technology. Humans had been forced to be clever. Earth's limited resources meant that every invention had to be efficient and elegant, while the Empire built massive ships powered by primitive drives. Humans had learned to bend space and time itself. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Vexthul called an emergency meeting of his High Council. The most important leaders in the Empire gathered in the Great Chamber. Many of them looked scared, though they tried to hide it. "Report," the Emperor commanded. Defense Minister Kithral stood up on shaking legs. "Your Majesty, the alien vessel has capabilities we cannot understand or counter. Our weapons cannot target it, and our sensors cannot track it properly." Intelligence Director Pithven added his own disturbing news. "Sire, we have detected scanning beams from their ship. They are studying our fleet and our defenses, but we cannot scan them in return. Their hull blocks all our sensors." For the first time in his long reign, Emperor Vexthul felt truly afraid. The Empire's strength came from knowing that no one could challenge them. But these humans had technology. That made the Empire's finest weapons useless. "What do they want?" he asked. Before anyone could answer, every communication system in the palace activated at once. A calm human voice spoke in perfect Zelfarian language. "Greetings from the United Earth Systems. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations with your empire." A council chamber fell completely silent. The humans had somehow taken control of their communication networks without anyone noticing. The implications were terrifying. Back on the Liberty, Dr. Amy Carter smiled as she finished the translation protocols. The Universal Translation System worked by analyzing quantum patterns in alien speech. It was another technology that shouldn't exist according to Zelfarian science. "Message sent, Captain," she reported. "Their language structure is actually quite simple once you understand the quantum resonance patterns." Commander Morrison checked his equipment one more time. His team was ready for whatever came next. Sergeant Eric Bell and Corporal Nenia Clark had prepared for possible hostile reactions from the aliens, but Captain Ross hoped that wouldn't be necessary. The humans wanted friends, not enemies. On Vorthik Prime, the Emperor stared at the communication screen. The human message played again and again. Each time, it sounded more impossible. No one should be able to speak their language so perfectly. No one should be able to control their communication systems from space. "How?" he whispered. Defense Minister Kithral had no answer. In less than an hour, everything the Empire believed about their superiority had been proven wrong. The humans waited patiently for a response, their impossible ship hanging in space above a capital world, like a reminder that the universe was much stranger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 3 hours had passed since the Liberty appeared above Vorthik Prime. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Vexthul finally found his voice. He had spent his entire life making decisions that affected billions of people. But this decision felt different. This time, he was not in control. "Send a response," he told his communication officer. "Tell them we will speak with them, but first they must prove their intentions." Ambassador Helen Parker received the message aboard the Liberty. She was Earth's most experienced diplomat, though she had never negotiated with aliens before. Next, to her stood Colonel Ben Wright, the ship's security chief, and Dr. Lisa Kim, who understood the technical aspects of what they might need to demonstrate. "They want proof of our intentions," Ambassador Parker told Captain Ross. "And they want to see what our technology can really do." Captain Ross nodded. She had expected this. The Zelfarians were scared, and scared people needed to see strength before they would trust peace. "Prepare a demonstration of our defensive systems," she ordered. "Something that will show them we could defend ourselves if needed, but that we choose not to attack." Dr. Rebecca Hayes worked quickly at her engineering station. The Liberty's defensive systems were based on quantum probability manipulation. The ship could exist in multiple realities at the same time, making it almost impossible to hit with conventional weapons down on the planet. Fleet Science Officer Zell Kin watched his instruments with growing amazement. The human ship was broadcasting technical data about what it was going to do. They were actually explaining their demonstration before they performed it. "They're telling us they can manipulate quantum probability fields," he reported to Admiral Zeph Moore. "But that's theoretically impossible. The energy requirements alone would be enormous." Admiral Zeph Moore ordered his best gunners to prepare for the test. If the humans wanted a demonstration, he would give them one. The Empire's most powerful weapons would show these aliens what real firepower looked like. Fire at full strength. He commanded 20 of the planet's biggest defense cannons fired at once. The combined energy blast could have destroyed a small moon. The beams raced through space toward the Liberty, carrying enough power to vaporize any normal ship. Liberty's bridge. Everyone watched calmly as the massive energy attack approached. Captain Ross felt no fear. She had complete faith in her ship and crew. "Quantum shields at full power," Dr. Hayes reported. "Probability manipulation active." The enormous energy blast hit the Liberty and passed right through it. To the watching Zelfarians, it looked like the ship had become a ghost. The weapons fire continued past the Liberty and disappeared into empty space, but the Liberty was still there, solid and undamaged. Fleet Science Officer Zell Kin stared at his readings in complete shock. According to his instruments, the human ship had existed in 17 different quantum states during the attack. The weapons had hit empty space in some realities, while missing the ship entirely in others. How is that possible? Admiral Zeph Moore whispered on the Liberty. Dr. Kim began broadcasting an explanation of what had just happened. Her voice was calm and patient, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson. "We exist in multiple probability states simultaneously," she said in perfect Zelfarian. "Your weapons hit us in some realities, but missed us in others. Since we control which reality we occupy at any given moment, we can choose to avoid damage while remaining present for communication." Senior Admiral Typh Vel, who commanded the Empire's entire home fleet, listened to this explanation with growing horror. If the humans could do this, then conventional warfare against them was impossible. No weapon in the Empire's arsenal could touch them. Dr. Hayes decided to share more information with the aliens. Humans had developed quantum technology because Earth's limited resources demanded innovation. While the Empire had built bigger and bigger ships, humans had learned to work with the basic forces of reality itself. "Our home world has limited materials," she explained. "We learned to do more with less. Your empire has vast resources, so you built powerful but inefficient systems. We built elegant systems that work with natural laws instead of fighting against them." In the Imperial Research Center, Science Director Nithvel realized the full implications of what she was hearing. The humans hadn't just developed one or two advanced technologies. They had completely different approaches to science and engineering. Chief Engineer Mike Foster took over the demonstration. He activated the Liberty's matter reconstruction systems. In full view of the Zeltharian sensors, the ship began assembling complex machinery from basic atomic materials. Within minutes, a fully functional communication relay had been built from nothing but hydrogen and carbon atoms pulled from space dust. The device was more advanced than anything in the Zeltharian fleet, and it had been created in less time than it took to read its specifications. Chief Builder Gefrol watched this display from his workshop on Vorthik Prime. He commanded millions of workers across hundreds of construction sites. His projects took years to complete and required massive amounts of raw materials. But the humans had just built something better than his best work in a few minutes, using almost no materials at all. Impossible, he muttered. But he was starting to realize that word had no meaning when it came to human technology. Emperor Vex Thul met privately with his closest advisors in his personal chambers. The demonstration had shaken everyone who witnessed it. Intelligence Director Pith Ving presented his preliminary analysis of human capabilities. Your Majesty, if these readings are accurate, human technology is thousands of years ahead of our own. They could destroy our entire fleet without taking any damage in return. But instead, they ask for friendship. The Emperor was quiet for a long time. His empire had been built on the principle that might made right. The strongest ruled, and the weak obeyed. But what happened when someone stronger chose not to rule? What do they want from us? He asked. According to their initial communications, they want trade agreements, cultural exchange, and mutual defense treaties, Pithven replied. They seemed genuinely interested in peaceful cooperation. This was perhaps the most shocking thing of all. The humans could take whatever they wanted, but they were asking permission, instead back on the Liberty. Ambassador Parker prepared for the next phase of contact. The Zeltharians had seen human defensive capabilities. Now it was time to show them what cooperation could accomplish. Captain, request permission to send an away team to their capital city, she said. It's time to sit down and talk face to face. Captain Ross approved the request. Commander Morrison and his team prepared to visit an alien world for the first time in human history. On Vorthik Prime, Emperor Vex Thul faced the most important decision of his reign. He could try to fight these incredible humans and certainly lose everything. Or he could try to work with them and possibly gain more than he had ever dreamed. The choice would determine the future of his empire and perhaps the entire galaxy. The next morning, Ambassador Helen Parker stepped onto the surface of Vorthik Prime. She was the first human to set foot on an alien world. Behind her came Dr. Amy Carter, who would handle translation duties, and Dr. Carl Adams, Earth's top economist. Zeltharian capital city stretched as far as the eye could see. Massive towers reached up into the clouds, connected by bridges that carried millions of people every day. It was impressive, but Dr. Adams noticed something important. The city was built for show, not efficiency. Look at the energy waste, he whispered to Ambassador Parker. Those buildings use 10 times more power than they need. And the transportation system moves people in circles instead of straight lines. Emperor Vex Thul had agreed to meet the humans in his great throne room. But first, they would talk with his advisors in a smaller chamber. He wanted to understand what these strange visitors really wanted before meeting them personally. Defense Minister Kithral led the initial discussions. He was nervous, but he tried not to show it. Across the table sat 3 humans who represented the most advanced civilization anyone had ever encountered. What does Earth want from our empire? He asked directly. Ambassador Parker smiled. We want to be friends. We want to trade knowledge and help each other grow. We believe that cooperation is better than conflict. The minister found this hard to believe. In his experience, the strong took what they wanted from the weak. But the Humans were clearly the strong ones here, and they were asking instead of taking. Dr. Carter began sharing human cultural information. She explained how Earth's nations had learned to work together despite their differences. She told stories of human exploration and discovery that amazed the Zeltharian officials. Meanwhile, high above the planet, Colonel Ben Wright watched his security screens with growing concern. Zeltharian military ships were moving toward Vorthek Prime from all over the Empire. It looked like they were preparing for something big. "Captain, we have a problem," he reported to Captain Ross. "I'm reading massive fleet movements. Hundreds of ships heading this way." On Earth, General Max Turner monitored the situation from military headquarters. He had been watching Zeltharian communications for weeks, and he didn't like what he was seeing. Some of their military leaders were talking about a preemptive strike against the Liberty. "Send a message to Captain Ross," he ordered. "Tell her to be ready for anything. The Empire might try something desperate." Back in the palace, the negotiations continued. Dr. Adams presented trade proposals that made the Zeltharian economists gasp with amazement. Human technology could improve their efficiency by hundreds of %. Worlds that struggled with resource distribution could have abundance almost overnight. "This food synthesis technology," said Chief Agricultural Officer Mef Cole, "you could feed 1 billion people with a device the size of a small building?" Dr. Adams nodded. "That's just the beginning. We have medical technologies that could extend your lifespans by centuries. Clean energy systems that could power your entire civilization without any environmental damage." Lead Medical Officer Jeff Kyle studied the human data with growing excitement. The genetic therapy techniques alone could eliminate most diseases in the Empire. The implications were staggering, but not everyone was pleased with these developments. In his private office, Military Commander Kef Daw met with his most trusted generals. They were the old guard, the ones who had built their careers on the Empire's military strength. "These humans threaten everything we've worked for," he told them. "If the Emperor makes an alliance with them, our military will become obsolete. Our power will be gone." General Veftal agreed. "We must act before more human ships arrive. One ship we might defeat if we use overwhelming numbers. But if they bring a fleet, we'll have no chance at all." They were wrong about being able to defeat even one human ship, but they didn't know that. The Empire's computer models couldn't predict human capabilities because they were beyond anything the computers had been programmed to understand. Chief Strategist Wef Nall argued against military action. Any attack on the humans would be suicide. "They've already shown that our weapons cannot touch them. We need to find a diplomatic solution." But Kef Daw was not interested in diplomacy. He was interested in maintaining the power structure that had kept him in control for decades. Back in the throne room, Ambassador Parker made a casual comment that sent shockwaves through the Empire's leadership. While discussing Earth's knowledge of Zeltharian culture, she mentioned that humans had been monitoring their communications for months. "We learned your languages by listening to your broadcasts," she said. "We studied your art, your literature, your history. We wanted to understand you before we made contact." The implications terrified everyone in the room. If humans could monitor their communications without being detected, then they knew everything about the Empire's military capabilities, political structure, and strategic weaknesses. Intelligence Director Pith Ven felt his blood turn cold. For months, the Empire's most secret communications had been compromised. The humans knew about every military base, every defensive position, every political conflict within the government. Dr. Lisa Kim, who had remained quiet during most of the discussions, finally spoke up. "We want you to know that we have no interest in your internal affairs. We monitored your communications only to learn how to communicate with you peacefully. But the damage was done." The Empire's leaders now understood that their strategic position was hopeless. The humans could observe them undetected, could defend against any attack, and could probably strike back in ways the Empire couldn't even imagine. Commander Morrison's security team remained alert throughout the discussions. Sergeant Eric Bell monitored Zeltharian military communications, while Corporal Nina Clark watched for any sign of hostile movement. "Sir, I'm picking up some concerning chatter," Sergeant Bell reported. "Some of their military leaders are talking about a surprise attack." Commander Morrison wasn't worried about the Liberty's safety. The ship's defenses could handle anything the Empire could throw at them. But he was concerned about the diplomatic mission. If shooting started, it would be much harder to build the peaceful relationship both sides needed. As the day wore on, Emperor Vexthul found himself facing an impossible choice. His military commanders wanted him to authorize an attack. That would certainly fail and might destroy the Empire. His scientists wanted him to embrace the alliance that could transform their civilization. His advisors were split. Some saw the humans as an opportunity for growth and prosperity. Others saw them as a threat to the established order that had kept the Empire stable for thousands of years. Late that evening, Chancellor Befsil, the Emperor's oldest and most trusted advisor, came to speak with him privately. The old Chancellor had served the Empire for 3 centuries and had seen many crises come and go. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "this is not like the other challenges we have faced. These humans represent something completely new. We can either adapt to this new reality, or we can be swept aside by it." The Emperor stood at his window, looking up at the human ship that hung in the sky above his capital. In all his years of rule, he had never felt so powerless. But perhaps, he thought, powerlessness was not the same thing as hopelessness. The future of the Empire, and perhaps the galaxy itself, would be decided in the next few hours. Emperor Vexthul made his decision just before dawn. He walked through the empty halls of his palace, thinking about the choice that would change everything. Behind him followed Chancellor Befsil, who had advised 3 emperors and seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. "Send word to Ambassador Parker," the Emperor said. "I will meet with her and Captain Ross personally. It is time to end this crisis." The meeting took place in the Emperor's private study, away from the crowds and ceremonies of the throne room. Ambassador Parker sat across from the ruler of hundreds of worlds, while Captain Ross stood nearby. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. "I understand that my empire faces a new reality," the Emperor began. "Your technology is far beyond ours. Your capabilities make our military strength meaningless. But instead of conquering us, you ask to be our friends." Ambassador Parker nodded. "We believe that cooperation benefits everyone, Your Majesty. Earth learned long ago that partnerships are stronger than empires built on fear." The Emperor was quiet for a moment, considering the weight of his next words. "Then I accept your offer of alliance. The Zeltharian Empire will work with humanity to build a better future for both our peoples." Chancellor Befsil smiled for the first time in days. He had feared that pride would destroy the Empire, but wisdom had won in the end. News of the alliance spread quickly through both civilizations. On Earth, crowds celebrated in the streets as they learned that humanity now had powerful friends among the stars. On Zeltharian worlds, the reaction was more mixed, but most people were excited about the possibilities. Dr. Rebecca Hayes wasted no time in beginning collaborative research projects. She worked with Zeltharian scientists to share human technology, while learning about the Empire's vast databases of knowledge. The combination of human innovation and Zeltharian resources promised breakthroughs neither species could achieve alone. The first joint project was improving the Empire's transportation systems. Dr. Hayes and her team worked with Chief Engineer Gefrol to redesign the inefficient networks that connected Zeltharian worlds. Using human quantum technology, they could move ships faster and with less energy than ever before. "Look at this," Dr. Hayes explained to her new alien colleagues. "Instead of fighting against gravity and inertia, we work with the natural quantum forces that exist everywhere. It's like swimming with the current instead of against it." The formal alliance ceremony took place 1 week later on Vorthik Prime. Admiral Marcus Stone came down from the Liberty to represent Earth's military, while Ambassador Parker handled the diplomatic protocols. The treaty they signed established mutual defense agreements and technology sharing programs that would reshape both civilizations. Emperor Vexthul addressed his empire during the ceremony. His words were broadcast to every world under Zeltharian control, reaching billions of people who were curious about their new human allies. "Today marks the beginning of a new age," he declared. "We will no longer rule through fear and force alone. We will lead through innovation and cooperation, guided by partners who have shown us that strength and wisdom can work together." The military integration proved more challenging than the scientific cooperation. Colonel Ben Wright worked patiently with reformed Zeltharian commanders to establish joint training programs. Many of the old guard officers, including military commander Kef Dahl, were quietly retired or reassigned to less important positions. Fleet Admiral Kothvel, who had initially opposed contact with the humans, became one of their strongest supporters after seeing human tactical innovations in action. The human approach to warfare emphasized adaptability and efficiency over brute force, concepts that fascinated the more progressive Zeltharian officers. "Your people think like water," he told Colonel Wright during a training exercise. "You flow around obstacles instead of trying to smash through them." It is a completely different way of understanding conflict. The economic transformation began almost immediately. Dr. Carl Adams worked with Zeltharian economists to implement efficiency protocols across the Empire's vast trade networks. Worlds that had struggled with resource distribution suddenly found themselves with abundance. The changes were dramatic. Factory worlds that had required massive amounts of raw materials could now produce the same goods with human matter reconstruction technology. Agricultural worlds could feed 10 times as many people using human synthesis techniques. Transportation costs dropped by 90% thanks to improved drive systems. But the most important change was cultural. As humans and Zeltharians worked together, they learned from each other in ways that neither had expected. Humans gained access to thousands of years of galactic history and the wisdom of countless civilizations. Zeltharians learned about innovation, creativity, and the power of thinking differently about old problems. Dr. Kevin Blake's research revealed that human quantum technology could be enhanced using Zeltharian understanding of dimensional mathematics. The aliens had theoretical knowledge that could push human science to even greater heights. "They understand the mathematics of 17-dimensional space," he reported to Admiral Stone. "Combined with our practical application techniques, we could develop technologies that neither of us imagined possible." The first joint expedition launched 3 months after the alliance was signed. The UES Liberty, now serving as a mobile embassy, led a combined fleet of human and Zeltharian ships to contact other galactic civilizations. Captain Ross commanded the mission, with Admiral Stone providing overall strategic direction. Their first stop was the Keth Collective, a group of machine intelligences that had avoided contact with the Empire for centuries. The combination of human diplomatic skills and Zeltharian historical knowledge made the negotiations much easier than anyone had expected. Back on Vorthik Prime, Emperor Vexthul established a permanent human embassy in the capital city. The building used human construction techniques to create a structure that was both beautiful and incredibly efficient. It became a symbol of what cooperation between the two species could accomplish. Ambassador Parker took up permanent residence as Earth's representative to the Empire. Her staff included scientists, engineers, and cultural specialists who worked daily with their Zeltharian counterparts. The embassy became a center of innovation where impossible ideas became everyday reality. The success of the Human-Zeltharian alliance inspired other species across the galaxy. Civilizations that had remained isolated for centuries began reaching out, hoping to join the growing community of cooperation. Within a year, 12 different species had signed similar agreements. Dr. Amy Carter, now serving as Earth's chief xenolinguist, found herself busier than ever as humanity made contact with more and more alien civilizations. Each new language and culture brought fresh insights and possibilities. The military aspects of the alliance proved their worth when the combined fleet encountered the Vax swarm, a hostile species that had been expanding aggressively through nearby star systems. The battle was brief and decisive. Human defensive technology protected the Allied ships, while Zeltharian firepower, guided by human tactical analysis, ended the threat quickly and efficiently. We could not have won that battle alone, Admiral Kothbel admitted afterward. Our ships were too slow and our tactics too predictable. But working together, we were unstoppable. 5 years after first contact, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The Zeltharian Empire had evolved into the Galactic Cooperative, a voluntary alliance of species working together for mutual benefit. Humanity served as the technological heart of this new civilization, while the former empire provided resources and organizational experience. Captain Ross, now promoted to admiral, commanded the largest exploration fleet in galactic history. Her ships carried human technology and Zeltharian wisdom to the furthest reaches of known space, always seeking new friends and allies. Emperor Vexthul, now known as Chancellor of the Cooperative, often reflected on the day the impossible human ship had appeared above his capital. That moment of crisis had become the foundation of the greatest age of peace and prosperity the galaxy had ever known. On Earth, children learned about the stars not as distant points of light, but as homes to friends they had never met. Schools taught Zeltharian history alongside human history. Young people dreamed of careers exploring the galaxy and building bridges between species. Dr. Rebecca Hayes, now in her 70s, had become the most respected scientist in the cooperative. Her work on quantum engineering had revolutionized everything from transportation to communication. But she was most proud of the young researchers, both human and alien, who carried on her work with fresh ideas and unlimited enthusiasm. The Liberty itself had become a legend. The ship that had once seemed impossible to Zeltharian censors now served as the flagship of the cooperative fleet. Captain Ross kept it in perfect condition, honoring both the courage of its original crew and the friendship that had grown from a moment of mutual fear. In the deepest archives of Warthog Prime, historians preserved the records of humanity's first arrival. The panicked communications, the impossible sensor readings, and the desperate attempts to understand what was happening had become valuable lessons about the importance of keeping an open mind. "That's not possible," had been the first words spoken about H.